Welcome to the Technivorous 3D printing channel, folks. I am Technivorous. If you'd like to become a Technivore, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below right now. We're going to jump right into this video. Today we are taking a more in-depth look at Chitubox. Now, my first look at this slicer was about a week and a half ago, and I did post a video with my initial thoughts and things of that nature. Today, however, we are going to be exploring some more of the options a little bit more in depth, such as how to add supports, how to hollow a model, and how to add drainage holes. So, let's take a quick look at this. I have this model here. This is a standard miniature model, pretty well developed. It has no overhangs. There are a couple of spots that required support according to the internal mechanics of the automatic support builder in Chitubox, but I am pretty sure that this model would print just fine with absolutely no support. So we are actually going to take the support off of here. In order to deal with supports, you're going to click on this side right here, and you can actually remove them one by one by clicking on one and hitting delete. By clicking on one, you can select more than one as well. And then hitting delete, or you can do the remove all button down here as well. So that removes all support. It doesn't drop my model to the build plate though. However, when I go back to regular mode, the model is flat on the build plate. So when I select support, it lifts it up, intending to move it away from the surface. That way I don't have such a giant flat area that is stuck to my build plate. So there are some options here for different types of support, whether it goes on the bottom, the middle, or the top of the model. But generally, you can just click Add Support here and go to either Platform or All. Now, Platform will only add supports where they're touching the platform, which means that there won't be any in between the two parts of the model here. We are going to hit All, because that will generate all the support that the slicer decides that we need. So as you can see, it is supporting a little bit of the beard, the overhang on the arm, and the knee. What's important to note here, however, is that since I changed the model's orientation, even though it was ever so slight, the placement of the supports themselves have moved. In the last iteration, they were back here holding up the cape, and as you can see, there's nothing holding that up at the moment. But like I said, this model shouldn't really need support. I printed it without support on FDM several times. So one of the other things we need to do once we have support added is go back to here. This is where your slicing will be. You can find your settings in here as far as the actual print itself. So pretty simple stuff, pretty self-explanatory. We'll go over that a little bit more in depth in another video, but the other thing I wanted to show you was hollowing. So if you hit hollow, you can select the wall thickness, and you can either select inner or outer. Now the precision is pretty much exact. There's a 0% tolerance right now. You can adjust that. If I hit start, you'll actually see it go through the model and hollow it out here. And hollowing out a model leads to a great reduction in the resin used, as well as getting yourself a little bit simpler curing process. It doesn't take as long to cure because there isn't so much liquid resin inside the model. And yes, when you print the model, it does pretty much print the shell and hold the liquid inside. So the reason that they have this option here, which is the drainage hole option, is so that you can add a hole. And if I want, you can adjust the depth here. I only want this to be about 2 millimeters because I don't want it to go through the top of the model. I just want it to be able to leak out the bottom. So seeing as how this is actually the bottom of the model, and that won't allow resin to leak out, if I put a hole in the bottom here, that's actually going to be printing on the top, so that isn't going to do me any good. So what I need to do is, let's change this to 1 as well. Get a little bit smaller hole. And I think good placement for this probably be right here. So we're going to add a hole. Nope, not hollowed out or too deep to dig. So try this at 3. And it gives you that warning if the hole isn't going all the way through the model. That's about what we have for thickness there. So we're going to make this hole a little bit bigger. That should work. And there you go. The problem with this is it does leave a hole in the actual model. So while this is good for getting the resin to drip out as it's printing, because remember it's going to print this part up, which means that the liquid in here is still going to be able to drain out of that hole once it reaches it. So that will help significantly in reducing waste, but it does also leave a hole in the model. So the tricky thing is to put that hole somewhere that is less visible. You can just Control Z and undo it. A good place might be down here. However, printing upside down, if I put a hole here, it's not going to drain anything below the feet here. So placing holes is something that is not absolutely necessary. On certain models, it poses great advantages. On this particular model, there's really no place that I can put it where it won't cause damage to the model, and I really don't want to do that. So we are going to go ahead and slice this model. I will get it printed out, and you can see how well the supports came out, and we will remove them as well. And then we will try to get a shot of the inside of the model being hollow. I'm not sure how we're going to do that yet without completing the model. Maybe we'll just stop it halfway through and examine the outer shell. If you look at the inside here, even though that tolerance is 0, you're not getting an accurate geometry inside. They're using as few polygons as possible in order to reduce the actual slicing time, and that is a good thing. It doesn't need to be super detailed on the inside because you're not going to see the inside in most cases. If you're using a translucent, this will add a slightly prismatic effect to the inside of the model because of those polygons, but it's actually quite a nice look. So let's slice this up here and get it on the printer. So as you can see, it is a pretty small miniature. We're going to go ahead and take it out and see how our Chitubox support turned out. So let's open up here. And I try to close this whenever possible so I don't get light hardening the resin that's still in the vat. But as you can see, here is our pirate model. So let's go ahead and remove it from the build plate. Go ahead and change the camera angle here so I'm not holding it in the air. It's a little more stable this way. And they do say, when following the actual directions for this printer, that scratching the build surface is actually a good thing. Now actually you want to be sure not to make any big huge gouges, but those fine scratches actually lead to better adhesion in the long run. So let's go ahead, pop this back on before we pick up our model there. And since after this run we're going to be cleaning our tray and trying a different kind of resin, we're going to go ahead and loosen the front 2 bolts here. And the back 2 only slightly, just enough for it to drop down. And we are going to tilt it like this and screw 2 sides back in. We're only going to do the 2 bolts on one side because this is basically to let the printer drip dry here. I'm going to put the case back on and let what little bit of residue I can drip back into the tray before we clean it. So just doing a little swipe here with the plastic spat. Then I'm going to throw it, That wasn't supposed to happen. And then just kind of drip it like that. So this stuff will run if allowed to and drip back into the tray. Now a steeper slope would be a little bit better. They do have printable mods for that. I think we will work one of those out on an FDM machine here pretty soon. But as for our pirate print, let's take a look. Not bad. My wife was really impressed when I first showed her these prints because this clear does look like glass. So real quickly, this guy here was rinsed in IPA. You can see I have a isopropyl alcohol here and a bucket for rinsing. They recommend using 90 or 99%. This is only 70% because it is a little bit difficult to find sanitizing solutions at the moment in my location. But it does work enough. It just has to be a little bit longer of a wash. So we're going to go ahead and run this through the wash and remove the supports. So basically the difference is this guy was run through the wash and then cured, and it retained a lot more translucency. This one was not washed and then cured, and as you can see, it did yellow a little bit. Although I will say the yellowing on this clear resin is not nearly as bad as I have heard from a lot of other resins. And what we're using is actually a standard resin, and this is by Elegoo. So this is an Elegoo clear. We'll have a full review for this item later. I do need to test a couple other resins before I can give you an actual review because I have to have something to compare it to. So then we are going to do the cleaning video, and we are going to do a couple of prints with the skin from Shine Song. Now this is a tough resin, so should be a little bit more durable, but then we will at least have something to compare to. So far I am very, very pleased with these models. This is, I mean, minimal support, and the support was pretty easy to remove. In fact, we can remove the support before washing it just in case we have to get a little bit of cleanup done. Like I said, they do come off pretty easily. In some places they are fused more than others. But this resin actually, it was impressive how easily it sanded down as well. So let's go ahead and pop the bottom off this guy before we get it in the wash here. And it's a good idea to wear eye protection as well as gloves so you aren't launching pieces of resin into your eyeballs or anything like that. Definitely take all the safety precautions that you can because this stuff is toxic, so you don't want chunks of it lying around, and you'll want to make sure to clean up your area thoroughly when you are done. Just a second, I'm just kind of hacking this off real quick because it does separate pretty easily, but the lower down I have it to the table, the further the chunks spread. There we go. For the most part, that is it. Unlike a lot of other models, because of the way that this support was generated here, you can see this bottom is not really flat. This stuff is super easily sandable, so this will all sand really, really flat and look perfect. And you know, it's really hard to see the hollow in there, and that's actually a good thing. We don't want any extra refraction or anything like that, just the nice silhouette of the model. So this guy looks very good. Let's go ahead and give it a rinse real quick. And I'm going to bring my bucket over here. And we're basically just going to fill it to a decent amount. I'm going to give it a little stir while it's in there, so I don't want to overfill the bucket. So I put about an inch in here, and then just make sure I get good stirring and rotation. This isopropyl alcohol, or IPA as it is known in the industry, is great for removing the excess liquid resin that is on the outside of a print. So if I had touched that with my bare hands, it would have been really sticky. It's one of the reasons for the glove. The other reason, as I mentioned, the resin is toxic, so you don't want to have skin-on-skin contact. You definitely don't want to get it on your hands and then touch your face or anything like that. But the nice thing about IPA is the evaporation rate. So once I have a nice dissolve, I can remove this model and we can set it out, and it will dry relatively quickly. Being alcohol, it pretty much just evaporates on contact with the air. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead, there's a nice mess on here as well, so I'm going to go ahead and clean that off. And you can see actually how the IPA works, because you can see that streaking, and that is it pulling that liquid resin and dragging it down to drip off. Keeps it from bonding to things. So it does take a minute to get it washed. And you can see that streaking is very, very minimal now. So a little bit more, I think. And once you have it completely dissolved off the item you're trying to remove it from, you should end up with a smooth, flat surface like this. It's not beating together or running, and this should evaporate and dry pretty quickly as well. So let's go ahead, we'll set that aside. We're going to go ahead and reach in here, because there is dissolved resin in the tank, and we're just going to pull this out really carefully with my tool here. And we're going to let that dry. I'll get you a little bit better look of a close-up here in a few minutes once it is all dry. Alright, and as promised, here is that finished pirate model. Now everything came out pretty well. You can see from the sweeping flow of the cape. And the supports all came off pretty easily. So the nice thing about this is, let's see, there's my finger for scale. This is a really, really tiny piece. Now, if you look here, you can see this skull. That is about the same size as the end of this Allen key. That skull is pretty well detailed. It's a little bit hard to see because of the clear resin, but as we turn it a little bit more, you can see that it is very, very well done. Now that is very tiny. Down to the lines in the chest that you see here. Very, very well printed, very good quality. The support that was between the legs came off pretty easily, and everything is looking pretty phenomenal. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. The support test worked pretty well. Just as a quick example, let me show you another model that I started where the model came out fine, but the support was made a little bit too thin. So this one's not off the build plate yet. We're just going to take a quick peek, and then we will head out and end this video. Alright, now this is it. This is a model of a dragon that I printed off of Thingiverse. The model came out pretty well so far. I haven't taken it off the build plate and checked everything out. But I did want to point out that if you look at the left side here, you can see that the whole support structure that was holding it up is gone, which means that somewhere in this vat of resin is some chunks of hardened plastic that will definitely need to be filtered out before I dump this back into the bottle. But the print seems to have come out alright regardless. And the reason for that is because even though the vertical support's busted, a lot of the angled support off of the other braces still supported the model, which is one of the advantages of Chitubox support. So it's nice that you have options if one piece fails, that the rest of it can still build up accurately. And yes, as I said, failed support with this kind of printer normally means that there are plastic chunks in your vat, and you will need to sift those out. But the model still came out well, and I'm very, very pleased with it. So we're going to continue experimenting with support. The reason I did this is because I wanted to see how thin I could make them and still have them support the object, because thinner support means less wasted plastic and less connection to the model. So haven't found that sweet spot yet, but we're getting really, really close. I think I need to make them just a little bit bigger than this, and they'll still be nice and easy to remove and hold the model without wasting a ton of plastic. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. When I get these settings dialed in perfectly, I will let you know and make a video on it. But for now, we are going with standard Chitubox settings for support, and they are working really well. So thanks for stopping by. If this video was helpful to you, leave a like down below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one. Well, that's it, guys. That's going to wrap up this video. If you've noticed the shirt, the merch is available. Go ahead and check out the Teespring merch link down below. It won't be available on a channel store until I reach 10,000 subscribers, and so far I am just about to hit 5,000. So it'll be a little while, a couple more months before you see this on the actual channel, but they are available now. I have a couple other designs. Feel free to pop over there and check them out, and know that any purchase through the Teespring site definitely helps to promote our site here and increase the channel's ability to make videos in the future. So we appreciate all your support. Don't forget to check out the Teespring link, check out our Patreon link, leave a like on this video, and hit that subscribe button because we have a lot more coming at you in the coming days.